Hello all, welcome to my channel. In today's video series on antibiotics, we will be looking into the different modes of action of an antibiotic. So the antibiotics are divided into 5 groups based on which part of the pathogen cell it acts upon. Now in this video, we will be talking or we will be restricting ourselves to the antibiotics that are affecting bacteria or the antibiotics which are antibacterial in nature. So with respect to the mode of action, we have 5 types of antibiotics. We have antibiotics that inhibit the cell wall synthesis, those that inhibit the protein synthesis, the antibiotics which are inhibiting the nucleic acid synthesis inside the bacterial cell, antibiotics which are disrupting the cell membrane structure, and those which are inhibiting the metabolic pathway. So we will be looking into each one of these modes in detail. We will see what are the different antibiotics that are having this mode of action and what exactly do they go and attack in that particular mode. So let us get into it. The first mode of action are cell wall synthesis inhibitors. Now, when we see a bacterial cell, the structure that is shown over here is that of a bacterial cell. When we see a bacterial cell, the outermost layer of a bacterial cell is usually the cell wall. There are some bacteria which have an external membrane, to a membrane that is external to that of the cell wall called as an outer membrane, but all the bacteria have a cell wall in them, and that is why cell wall synthesis inhibiting antibiotics are so much preferred, because the animal cell, or in other words the human cell, does not have a cell wall. So even if we have an infection and we take in an antibiotic that inhibits the cell wall synthesis of a bacteria, our cells will not be affected because we don't have a cell wall. So the antibiotic cannot go and attack our cells. The antibiotic will only go and attack the bacterial cells. Hence, cell wall synthesis inhibitors are a preferred mode of action when we look into antibiotics. So these inhibitors or these antibiotics go and block the synthesis of the bacterial cell wall. How do they do it? Now the bacterial cell wall is made up of a component called as peptidoglycan, and this peptidoglycan is having 2 major units in it, that is N-acetyl glucosamine and N-acetyl muramic acid. These are the 2 units which are present in the peptidoglycan of every bacterial cell wall. Now, how much of peptidoglycan is present, what is the thickness of the peptidoglycan, that may vary, but all the bacteria, whether they are gram positive or gram negative, or even some of the modified bacteria which have cell wall in them, have peptidoglycan as their major component in the cell wall. So when we talk about the cell wall synthesis inhibiting antibiotics, it means that in the synthesis of peptidoglycan or during the synthesis of a peptidoglycan, they go and block one or more steps. Now before we see what all steps they block, let us just quickly look into the structure of peptidoglycan. I have not gone into details over here. It is outside the purview of this video. But just so that you all know, the bacterial peptidoglycan is made up of 2 units, that is NAG, what I have previously shown you, that is N-acetyl glucosamine and N-acetyl muramic acid. Now these 2 units are alternating with each other. So we have NAG binding to NAM, which binds next to the NAG, NAM, and this keeps continuing. We have several such chains of NAG, NAM units. Now from the NAM, that is N-acetyl muramic acid, from the NAM, we have an amino acid chain that is linked. It is usually a pentapeptide chain, which then later becomes tetrapeptide during the bonding. Again, that is outside the purview. So let us just say that the NAM is having a peptide chain attached to it. Or we can see here that there are several amino acids which are in conjunction with the NAM unit. Now, such chains of NAG, NAM units attached with the peptide chain, the peptide chain which is attached to the NAM unit, such chains are several in number. There are many such chains that are formed. Now, for a strong peptidoglycan or for a strong cell wall, these chains then have to be further interlinked. So, the interlinking of these chains occurs with the help of a small bridge or with the help of a glycine interbridge. So, what is marked as X over here is actually a peptide interbridge, or it is a glycine interbridge, again made up of amino acids, which is going to lock or which is going to cross link the 2 NAG NAM chains. So in this manner or in this fashion, there are several NAG/NAM chains which have been interlinked with the help of this glycine bridge or glycine interbridge. This is the structure of a bacterial cell wall. And we have several antibiotics which are attacking one or more of these areas. For example, we have the beta lactam antibiotics, that is penicillin, cephalosporin, ampicillin, methicillin. All of these are inhibiting the enzyme that brings about the cross linking. So what happens over there is we have several chains of NAG/NAM, that is N-acetyl glucosamine and N-acetyl muramic acid, but they are not being able to interlink, or they cannot get interlinked because the enzyme itself has been blocked by the penicillin or by cephalosporin. So they block the enzyme which brings about this cross linking of the polysaccharide chains or of the peptidoglycan chains. Then we have antibiotics such as vancomycin. Vancomycin inhibits the reaction itself. It binds to the peptide chain. So it will bind to the peptide chain, that is to this peptide chain, due to which again this cross-linking cannot happen because the cross-linking is getting blocked. So penicillins and even vancomycin are avoiding or they are blocking the formation of the cross-link. Then we have another antibiotic called as bacitracin. Bacitracin interferes with the carrier that is supposed to transport these precursors through the cell membrane. So NAG/NAM and these amino acid linkages or amino acid chains are being formed inside the cell. They have to be transported outside the cell through a membrane, through the cell membrane of the organism. So the organism is having a cell membrane. This is the outermost layer, which is the cell wall, and within that it is having a cell membrane. Now these NAG/NAM precursors are synthesized inside the cytoplasm. They have to move through the cell membrane and reach the outer part of the cell wall where the new cell wall has to be synthesized. Now the antibiotic bacitracin blocks the transport of these precursors outside the membrane. So even though the precursors are formed, they are not able to come outside, or they are not able to get transported across the membrane, due to which the new cell wall cannot be synthesized. So these are some of the modes of action, or these are some of the points where these antibiotics are attacking. We have penicillin. Examples of antibiotics which are blocking the cell wall synthesis include penicillin, cephalosporin, ampicillin, methicillin. All of these are having a similar mode of action. Then we have vancomycin, which is also blocking the cross-linking by binding to the peptide chain. And we have bacitracin, which interferes with the carrier that is supposed to transport these precursors across the cell membrane. So these are some of the methods or some of the modes by which the antibiotics can block the pathogen's cell wall synthesis. That is the first mode of action. The second important mode of action, which is targeted, or the second important criteria or the place in the cell which is targeted by the antibiotics, is the bacterial protein synthesis. So proteins are an essential biomolecule inside the cell, and every bacteria has to continuously synthesize proteins. It is not a one time affair. It needs to continuously synthesize proteins which are involved either as enzymes, or they may be having some structural role in the cell, or they may be having some transportation role, some defense role, some or the other role will be there for the proteins, and the bacteria have to continuously synthesize the proteins. So if we apply an antibiotic that is inhibiting the protein synthesis, that particular protein cannot be synthesized, and because it is having an important role, automatically the bacteria is unable to function. So the protein synthesis, usually whether it is a eukaryotic cell or a prokaryotic cell, the protein synthesis occurs on organelles known as ribosome. That is why I have displayed it over here. So protein synthesis occurs on ribosomes. Now these ribosomes are made up of two subunits. One is a very large subunit and the other one is a smaller subunit. The prokaryotic ribosome is different from the eukaryotic ribosome. Prokaryotic ribosome, as in the ribosome which is found in bacteria, is made up of two subunits, that is 50S, which is the bigger subunit, and 30S, which is the smaller subunit. So these two subunits combine together. The 50S combines with the 30S to give me the complete ribosome, that is 70S. Now in case of a bacterial ribosome, I have these two subunits. So these are points where the antibiotic can come and attack. Or these ribosomes only act as a workbench. They are not able to do the protein synthesis on their own. They are only providing a surface area, or they are only providing the workplace for the protein synthesis to happen. So the ribosome acts as a workbench to which the mRNA comes and attaches. So mRNA or messenger RNA will come and attach to the ribosome in a particular way or in a particular groove, and the mRNA carries the information for the proteins to be, or for the amino acids to be attached. So the mRNA will dictate which amino acid should come and attach next, and that is coming and attaching over there. So the mRNA comes and binds to the ribosome. mRNA is providing the information for the protein synthesis. Ribosome is providing the workplace, mRNA is providing the information. Now, based on the amino acid requested by mRNA, based on the amino acid which is being coded by the mRNA, the amino acid is brought in by another molecule, that is the tRNA. So, transfer RNA brings in the amino acid that is required by the mRNA. If mRNA is asking for phenylalanine, it is the tRNA which brings phenylalanine amino acid and deposits over there. So, tRNA is acting as a molecule which is going to carry the load and deposit the load. Now, the tRNA has two ends. One end of the tRNA is going to carry the amino acid. The other end of the tRNA is going to recognize or is going to read the information given by the mRNA. mRNA gives the information. That information has to be read by the tRNA, and then the tRNA has to deposit the correct amino acid. So the tRNA is one molecule which can be attacked by antibiotics, or the mRNA can be attacked by antibiotics, or the ribosome has two subunits. Either one of the subunits can be attacked by the antibiotics. This is just an overview of protein synthesis so that I can tell you where exactly the antibiotics are attacking. Now, these are some of the antibiotics which are classical examples of protein synthesis inhibitors. We have streptomycin, gentamicin, chloramphenicol, erythromycin, tetracycline, puromycin. All of the aminoglycosides are actually protein synthesis inhibitors. So, all these antibiotics are inhibiting one or the other step in the synthesis of proteins. For example, the streptomycin blocks 30S subunit or the smaller subunit. So the moment an antibiotic comes and attaches over here, the subunit loses its conformation and is unable to function or is unable to bind with the larger subunit to form the functional ribosome. So streptomycin will bind to the smaller subunit. The chloramphenicol is another example. Chloramphenicol will bind to the larger subunit, that is the 50S subunit. So one method by which they can block protein synthesis is by physically going and binding to the ribosome and blocking the ribosome from functioning. Another method that they can block protein synthesis is wherein, for an example, is tetracycline, which inhibits the tRNA from coming and binding. So tetracycline will inhibit the tRNA from binding to the ribosome because it will go and block the 30S in such a way that tRNA cannot come and bind over there. So tRNA binding is being inhibited by tetracycline. Then we have erythromycin, which will inhibit the elongation step of protein synthesis. Elongation is one of the steps of protein synthesis. So the elongation step is being blocked by erythromycin, which will block the elongation factors. We also have some aminoglycosides, for example, streptomycin again, which cause misreading of the mRNA. So even though the mRNA is giving the correct information, even though mRNA is asking for the correct amino acid, the amino acid which is being placed over there, the amino acid which is being attached in the growing peptide chain is incorrect because it has not been, the information has not been read properly. So misreading of mRNA is another method by which the protein synthesis can be blocked by the protein synthesis inhibitors. These are few of the examples. The next mode of action is the cell membrane disruption. So we have a few antibiotics that can go in through the cell wall of the organism, can reach the cell membrane and bind to the cell membrane. Now when it binds to the cell membrane's function and structure is lost. So before we talk about which are the antibiotics, you should know what a cell membrane is comprising of. So whether it is an animal cell membrane or a bacterial cell membrane or even for that matter a fungal cell membrane, the cell membrane of every organism, every living cell is comprised of phospholipids. These phospholipids are arranged in two layers. That is why it is called as a phospholipid bilayer. So we can see here, this is the phospholipid. The green part, the green ball is the phosphate group, and the pin-like structure that is below is the long chain, that is the lipid part. Now these phospholipids are arranged in a bilayer and they are inserted with several proteins. We have proteins that are completely present, trans proteins which are present and are stretching across the membrane. We have proteins which are present on the periphery. We have proteins which are present on the inside, and we also have one type of lipid, that is the sterols or steroids. Now in fungal cell membranes, the sterol is usually ergosterol, but in other cell membranes, the sterol is cholesterol. Now, when we talk about the cell membrane disruptors, these disruptors or these antibiotics bind to these phospholipids, which are the integral part of the cell membrane, which are the core critical part of the cell membrane. And as soon as they bind to these phospholipids, it causes pores or holes in the membrane. When there are holes or pores being formed in the membrane, automatically the permeability, which is the actual function of the cell membrane, is getting lost. The cell membrane, which is supposed to be selectively permeable, which is supposed to decide which molecule should go in, which molecule should stay in, which molecule should be sent out, that whole point of permeability is being lost, and the organism is unable to control the influx and the efflux of the components, or it is not able to control what comes in and what goes out, and the complete structure and permeability of the membrane is getting lost. That is how the cell membrane disruptors are functioning. And some of the examples include polymyxins. We have several types of polymyxins like polymyxin B, polymyxin E. So all the polymyxins, nystatin, amphotericin, these are some of the examples of antibiotics which are disrupting or disintegrating the cell membrane of an organism. Moving on to the fourth group of antibiotics based on their mode of action, we have nucleic acid synthesis inhibitors. Now inside the cell, we have two nucleic acids that are present. It could be either DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid, or RNA, that is ribonucleic acid. And both their synthesis mechanisms are different. So let us see what are the synthesis mechanisms. For DNA replication or DNA synthesis, there are several steps involved and several enzymes are involved. Many molecules are involved. So the antibiotics can go and attack any of these enzymes or any of these molecules. The moment they bind to these molecules or these enzymes, automatically the function of that enzyme is getting hindered and the organism is unable to continue with the DNA replication. Obviously, if there is no replication of DNA, there is no progeny and we don't get new organisms, the pathogen's growth is getting affected. That is how these antibiotics are working. So some of the examples for this include nalidixic acid, ciprofloxacin and novobiocin, all of which are targeting one of the several enzymes involved in the DNA synthesis. And the enzymes involved in DNA synthesis include DNA gyrase, topoisomerase, helicase, DNA polymerase. So any of these activities can be blocked by the nucleic acid synthesis inhibitors. We also have antibiotics that are inhibiting the RNA synthesis. Now, RNA synthesis is a process named as or termed as transcription. This process occurs from DNA. So, we have the DNA template. On the DNA template, an enzyme named RNA polymerase, a huge enzyme named RNA polymerase, goes and attaches to the DNA template. Once it attaches to the DNA template, based on the information, based on the codons that are present on the DNA, or sorry, the bases that are present on the DNA, we have the corresponding bases being synthesized or being added to the new RNA, newly formed RNA. So, as you can see over here in the picture, we have DNA bases which are arranged over here. One of the strands of DNA acts as the template strand. The RNA polymerase goes and attaches to the DNA, opens up the DNA. So you can see over here it was closed. Here it has been opened up. When it is opened up, one of the strands acts as the template, and based on whatever bases, nitrogenous base is present over here, the corresponding base is added by the RNA polymerase to form the new RNA or the newly made RNA. This process is called as transcription. So we have antibiotics such as actinomycin or rifampin which inhibit this process. They can either bind to RNA polymerase, that is what rifampin does. The moment RNA polymerase is blocked or inhibited, automatically the entire synthesis comes to a halt. Or we have actinomycin. Actinomycin will go and block one of the steps of RNA synthesis, that is elongation. So RNA elongation is being blocked by actinomycin. That is another step that can be blocked by the RNA synthesis inhibitors. So including both of these RNA synthesis and DNA synthesis inhibitors, those are clubbed under nucleic acid synthesis inhibitors. Now coming to the last mode of action, those are the metabolic pathway inhibitors, or which are also termed as anti-metabolites. These are antibiotics which block the functioning of metabolic pathways. That is, they act on a particular enzyme, they block that enzyme. So whatever work that enzyme is supposed to do, whatever product it is supposed to form is not getting formed. So automatically the entire pathway is getting blocked. Those antibiotics are called as anti-metabolites or metabolic pathway inhibitors. A very classical example of this is sulfa drug or sulfanilamide. The antibiotic has been shown in the oval shaped structure. Now sulfanilamide or even the other sulfa drugs, they inhibit the folic acid synthesis. Folic acid is an important compound that is required by the bacteria. Now this folic acid synthesis occurs with the substrate being para-aminobenzoic acid. So para-aminobenzoic acid or PABA is the substrate which is involved in the synthesis of dihydrofolate. It is one of the steps in folic acid synthesis. Now the sulfanilamide or the sulfa drug competes with the enzyme that is supposed to bind to para-aminobenzoic acid. So the actual substrate is para-aminobenzoic acid. It is supposed to go and form the dihydrofolate, but the sulfa drug will compete with that particular enzyme, or it will compete with the PABA, that is para-aminobenzoic acid, for the enzyme. And once the sulfanilamide binds to the enzyme, automatically this step is getting blocked. So the enzyme is unable to form the substrate, that is dihydrofolate. And if there is no dihydrofolate, there is no folic acid. Another drug which does the same process is trimethoprim. Trimethoprim is inhibiting the next step, that is, we have conversion of dihydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate by a reductase enzyme. This trimethoprim will inhibit that particular enzyme, so tetrahydrofolate will not be formed. Now, if there is no tetrahydrofolate, automatically there is no folic acid and the antibiotic is working, or the antibiotic is functioning well. So, sulfanilamide and trimethoprim are two examples of anti-metabolites or drugs or antibiotics which are inhibiting a particular metabolic pathway by blocking that enzyme, by blocking a single enzyme. They are blocking the entire metabolic pathway itself. So these are the 5 mechanisms of antibiotic action, or these are the 5 pathways, the 5 areas an antibiotic can go and attack. It can either attack the protein synthesis, it can go and inhibit the nucleic acid synthesis, which includes both DNA and RNA synthesis. It can go and bind to the cell wall and inhibit its synthesis. It can disrupt the cell membrane, or it can block, the antibiotic can block a particular metabolic pathway and thus bring the metabolism to a halt, or the metabolic action, metabolic function is getting halted. These are the different modes of action of every antibiotic. Whatever antibiotic we discover usually will fall under one of these modes of action, or they will have one of these functions, and that is how we have divided them into these 5 broad types. I hope this lecture was useful and all of you have understood the modes of action of antibiotics. Thank you.